Hey there, this is part 3 of our exponential reviews video. So we're going to talk about finding equations of exponentials. So notice that here in this example, find the exponential function f of x equals c times b to the x whose graph is given. And the reason we introduced that c in this is sometimes we may not be able to find the base right away. And so and also a more general form of an exponential is you have c b to the x, and you may have some other vertical shift, right, plus d. So that is a more general formula, but here our exponential or horizontal asymptote is still 0, so it does not appear to have a vertical shift, sorry. All right, so how do we find the equation of this graph given 2 points? Well, we are working with, so let me just cross this out for a minute because that's not what we're using. We're going to use f of x equals c b to the x. So what this means is that I have an x and a y value here. And same thing here, I have an x and a y value. So this is helpful because when I am working with that equation, y equals c b to the x, I can use those points. So when I have the point 0, 2, that means x is 0, y is 2. That's going to translate to saying y, so 2, equals c times b to the x. Well, x is 0 based on that point. B to the 0 is 1, so I'm just left with c equals 2. So therefore, so far I have y equals 2 times b to the x. And so now I want to find b. And so how do I do that? I use my other point. So using 1, 3, x is 1, y is 3. This is going to tell me that 3, y, right, equals c b to the x, but I already know the value of c. So 2 times b to the x. X is 1. B to the 1 is just 1, so I have 3 equals 2b. So b is, divide both sides by 2, so I get b is 3/2. And so our formula for this function would be f of x equals c b to the x. Our c is 2, and our b is 3/2. So this will be 3/2 to the x. And that would be the equation of this particular function that is graphed. So now let's try an application of exponentials. We will revisit exponentials again, applications of exponentials, when we get to chapter 3, as we start working more with half-life and things like that. But right now, let's try using this standard formula, c b to the x. So let's try this example. After alcohol is fully absorbed into the body, it is metabolized. Suppose that after consuming several alcoholic drinks earlier in the evening, your blood alcohol concentration at midnight is 0.14 grams per deciliter, and after 1.5 hours, your BAC is half that amount. Find an exponential model for your BAC hours after midnight. So with word problems, always focus on what is the question. So in this case, our task. In this case, our task is to find an exponential model for your BAC hours after midnight. So this is our task. We need to come up with f of, let's call it t. So, and I know that it's an exponential model. And so we're going to use our standard form right now. That f of t in this case is going to be c times b to the t. That's a times. I know it kind of looks like a composition, but it is a times. So c times b to the t. All right, so let's dissect this problem. So it looks like things are after midnight, and with word problems, I end up reading word problems 3 times, 5 times, 10 times, however long it takes me to try to get all the information out of it, and also to decide what's not useful information. So sometimes that can take a while. So if you're finding that you're reading the problem multiple times, that is totally normal. So let's see, after alcohol is fully absorbed into the body, it is metabolized. Suppose that after consuming several alcoholic drinks, blah, 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 that's not useful information. So here, your blood alcohol concentration at midnight. So midnight is our starting point for this problem. So at midnight, so we're going to call midnight will be time equals 0. T is 0. That's when we're starting to record what's happening. So, and then 1.5 hours later. So T will be 1.5. All right. So then that means that when T is 0, so at midnight, T is 0, I'm going to have the point, so T comma Y will be 0 comma 0.14. And then when T is 1.5, so 1.5 hours later, so it'll be T, Y is 1.5 comma half this amount. So after 1.5 hours, your blood alcohol concentration is half this amount. This amount, what amount are we referring to? The 0.14, right? So then it will be half of 0.14, which is 0.07. Don't drop any decimals there. Sometimes a common mistake that I'll see is people say 0.7, right? Yes, 7 is half of 14, but you're taking half of 0.14. So keep that decimal in there. All right, so now we can work with these numbers. So with the 0.0 and 0.14, that means we're going to have f of t equals c b to the t. So I'm going to have 0.14, the y value, equals c times b to the 0, because t is 0. So that lets me know that c is 0.14. And now with my next point, with 1.5, let me change that to a fraction. What's 1.5 as a fraction? 1.5 is 3 halves, right? So that means this is going to be 3 halves in 0.07. So what does that become in our equation? So that will mean that I'm going to have 0.07 equals c, I already know the value of c, so 0.14 b to the t. T is 3 halves. And so there's a reason I changed it to a fraction, because now I can use properties of exponents, and with rational exponents, I can work a little better than with decimal exponents. And now our goal is to solve for b. Again, we have not talked about logarithms, so I'm not going to bring in logarithms here, but we want to solve for b, so isolate b on one side, so divide both sides by 0.14. So 0.07 divided by 0.14 is going to give us 0.5, which I'm going to write as a fraction. So, and I'm going to have 1/2 is b to the 3 halves. And this is the reason why I'm using fractions, because now how do I get rid of the 3 halves? Power to power will multiply exponents, right? So that means I can raise this to the 2/3 power, because then those will cancel, leaving me at 1. But whatever I do to one side, I must do to the other. So I get to the 2/3 power. So my b is 1/2 to the 2/3 power is b. And so the model for this blood alcohol function will be f of t equals c. What was c? C was 0.14, and then times b to the t. So this is my b. So I'm going to have, so this is looking a little crazy, 1/2 to the 2/3 and then to the t. Now be careful here. I am using the variable t, and oftentimes we're used to using x. So I could have used x. I just used t because I noticed that we were working with time. In your homework, oftentimes there will be things that are also based on time, and your answer is supposed to be with t. And even if your answer is right, if you put in x, it's going to mark it wrong because it's expecting a t. So just kind of keep that in mind when you're doing homework. So let's simplify this. I'm going to have 0.14 and then 1/2 to the power to power. We multiply the exponents. So this will be 2/3 to the t, and that will be my model for this problem. There are other ways you could solve it using logarithms, but I haven't reviewed logarithms yet, so I'm not using that. All right, email me if you have any questions.